Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel on Human Design. I'm Pragya, and in our cosmology series so far, we've discussed the beginning before the start, the consciousness plan that already existed, that was implemented at the Big Bang where the universe was conceived. We also discussed the other explosion that took place that created the Rave personality crystal and led to the development of the Ajna center of our universe. Eventually, we spoke about the center, the camel, and the dog that reside in our sun. And finally, the larger consciousness program that exists, that conditions all beings. Finally, we come to the emergence of different designs on our planet. We begin with the design of the inanimate and the design of the cells, which make up the bedrock of all life on Earth. I hope you enjoy this one and are looking forward to the coming videos. So now we begin our journey of looking at the evolution of the different forms that have existed and will exist in the future on this planet or in this solar system that are actually participating in this experiment of bringing consciousness to the universe. And the first two forms that we're going to be looking at are the forms of the inanimate object and the cells. So what's important to understand here when it comes to these two forms is that actually there isn't yet any kind of personality consciousness in these forms. In fact, these forms do not even possess a personality crystal. They only possess a design crystal, and of course with that the magnetic monopoles that actually hold together the illusion of their separateness and also gives them this unique place in the Maya. So essentially these are instruments of consciousness rather than expressions of consciousness. And as we move along this evolutionary path, we'll see how these instruments of consciousness actually help develop expressions of consciousness. So let's have a look at the inanimate first. As we can see, the inanimate form is a single gate construct. It is just a hanging 25. There actually isn't a life force here yet. And what we can also see here is that there isn't really a separation between the design crystal and the magnetic monopole. The design crystal and the magnetic monopole in an inanimate object are one in the G center. We know that this is a condition for life to actually exist, separation of the design crystal and the magnetic monopole. And we can see that that isn't a reality here. And so, in essence, what an inanimate object is a design that is open to life, is a design that is looking to come alive, that has the potential to come alive, but is actually dormant, is actually waiting. And when we look at this single gate construct, we can look at it and see that actually atomically, it seems like it's not a very diverse construct, but it's important to remember that we do have the 6 lines and the 6 colors and the 6 tonal potential and the 5 base potential. So overall, even though it seems like the design of an inanimate object isn't very diverse because it's a single gate construct, but actually it has 1080 variations, 1080 different ways of coming alive. We can also very clearly see, because there isn't a defined life force, there isn't a channel here, that there is actually no definition in any of the centers, which would make all inanimate objects reflectors. And in essence, we can really feel in our experience with the inanimate that they have this openness towards taking things in and reflecting the consciousness of what it is interacting with. The design of the inanimate is a design that is open to giving others an identity, open to receiving the ego, the energy from outside, and giving others an interaction with it, an identity. Ra talks about how all of us actually obsessed with having different things in our life, having different materials, whether it be car or money or crystals or human design books, whatever it is because they bring us an identity that we didn't have previously. They almost give us an opportunity to step out of what we are regularly and to be perceived differently by others because of what we possess. Ra also takes a deep look at the hexagram structure of the inanimate and learns a little bit about the quality of the form of the inanimate through it. And he refers to the first line as malleable, and essentially he says that certain inanimate objects, because they have 25.1, are malleable objects, are malleable forms. These are forms that in essence are open to learning. And this is what makes certain objects really easy to work with and manipulate and change and develop into other objects or things. The second line quality is that of an object being determined. And essentially, what he's trying to say here is that as much as the inanimate object is open to being molded and is open to being made into something different, it also has its own unique deterministic quality. That's what the second line is about. It has a gift and it's waiting to be called to show that gift. So there are inanimate objects that are a little bit more rigid in that sense, where they are here to express certain qualities and are not entirely malleable in the way that they can be used. There are also objects that have the imprint of this third line, which makes them really sensitive to their environment. And because of their sensitivity to their environment and what they bump into, have this ability to act as conduits between two different materials. And this is what leads them to be mutative in their properties. There are also objects, inanimate forms, that are elemental in their nature. And Ra talks about this is where inanimate form has the potential to affect others, to affect human beings, say, for example. This is where the magic stones come into being. I am from India. I've grown up in a country where all of the idol worship is about worshiping a stone, is about worshiping an inanimate object. And I often hear people talk about the frequency of the object itself when they come in touch with it. There are massive temples located all over my country where people travel for hours and hours and walk thousands of steps just to get to that one stone, just to get to have that experience with that one stone that has a specific kind of frequency. Ra also talks about how this is where the witches and the shamans interact with the elements. This is what enables the inanimate objects to have an impact or an effect on other forms. There are also inanimate forms that are metaphysical in nature, and essentially the property that they bring forward is one of alchemy, is one of actually anything can be made out of anything, and it's really incredible to watch where we are at this stage of our evolution where humanity is trying to put consciousness into the inanimate through artificial intelligence. Inanimate form has the potential to alchemize, to change, to not only be open to being malleable, to not only having its own deterministic qualities, to not only being sensitive to its environment, to not only having the potential to impact its environment, but also to change with it, to also transform and to become a whole new thing. And then the sixth line of the inanimate form is one of unstability. And this is, in essence, an inanimate form that cannot be homogenized, that you cannot work with, that is very difficult to work with just because of how separate it is or how unique it is. So the inanimate form, the first form on this planet, the form through which this entire planet is constituted, that is not alive, that doesn't have any personality, consciousness, that doesn't have a life force, that is merely looking to be alive, that has the potential to be alive, that has the innocence to be alive, one that is waiting to reflect what is around it, to change with what is around it, to transform with what is around it, and in a way to help what is around it grow even more. In essence, the inanimate form is an instrument of consciousness itself. It's what Ra calls the flesh of the universe. It's the blood and bones of the universe. Most of what exists is inanimate, and it is what enables other life forms to grow and to develop and to evolve in their consciousness. The next form of consciousness is that of cells. And as we can see here, that now we actually have definition. We actually have a channel that is defined between the sacral center and the identity center. We have the magnetic monopole that is separated from the design crystal, indicating the presence of life. What we have here is the design of mutative flow. As we can see, there's generation of an identity that's open to change with the hanging 3. So there is a flow. There's an inherent flow. With gate 5 in cells actually sets the pattern for the cells to generate life. And then gate 15 is the one that controls the growth of the pattern or the rhythm of the pattern. And then it's gate 3 that is actually bringing in mutation along the way. So what we see is that there is a life force that has an identity that is open to mutation, that is open to change. And we know that cells make up pretty much everything that's alive on the planet. And that there are different kinds of cells that exist in different kinds of forms, that exist in different areas of the body itself. So we know that if the cells were not open to mutation, were not open to change, the diversity of life forms that we have on the planet would actually not be possible. It is because of this openness to change, it is because of this openness to mutation that actually different kinds of life forms exist on the planet and function in a unique, diverse way. The design of cells follows the law of organization. These are the most basic, foundational organizational principles of life itself, of consciousness itself. They set the local pattern of life and keep generating it over and over again and changing when change is required. What we can see from the design of a cell is that this is the building block of all life itself. That it is the life force that is required for any kind of form to exist on the planet. And now we can also understand, looking at this, why Ra often refers to generators as the life force of this planet. Because in essence, they represent this sacral principle, this ability to generate life force and this ability to continue to generate it It is the sacral center that becomes the building block on which this entire world of energy, of form, is birthed and kept alive through reproduction. So the inanimate object and cells are not really truly an expression of consciousness because we don't really see a personality here. There's not even a place for a personality crystal. There is just design consciousness, there is just form that is setting up the foundation for personality consciousness to come in and for the evolution of different forms.